Hey, Pia, let's start with you. Yesterday, your colleague, the former industry minister, a while back now, Maxime Bernier, gave a couple of interviews and said that he had received thousands of emails of complaints while he was industry minister back in 2006. As many as 35,000, I think, was the estimate. Now, in a blog today, he says that his staff deleted the complaints, that they weren't kept for the future. Why would he have deleted the complaints if they were so important to the government?
I don't work in Mr. Bernier's office, but perhaps if I did, I would have seen all of the complaints that came in. Certainly, members of Parliament are not allowed to take comments that come directly from citizens to their offices and share those individual names and citizens and their remarks with the media. So she's respecting privacy rights,
of course,
which is what this is really all about.
Mr. Bernier, though, is using this example of this enormous amount of complaints that he said he received as a defense of the government's position. So why wouldn't the government make those complaints public, or at least have talked about them sooner than just a day ago?
Well, I think Mr. Bernier is making the point that no one should be forced through threat of jail time and government coercion to divulge private and unnecessary information to the government. If the government wants to know how many cars you drive, how many bedrooms you have in your household, or what time you get up in the morning, they should ask for it, and if citizens don't want to provide it, then too bad for the government.
I don't think that last one's on the census long. What time you get up in the morning?
It's 40 pages. I haven't been able to memorize it all, but I think that it is what time you leave for work in the morning, I believe, is on the survey. And we believe that this is information that Canadians can share voluntarily if they choose, but should not be coerced mandatorily if they do not.
Okay, Charlie, let's get you in here. If the government were to be able to provide these complaints, and just the fact that Mr. Bernier says, listen, I got thousands of complaints, is that not enough of a reason to give you pause and think, well, maybe there's something to this?
Well, I think most Canadians are finding the Conservative answers getting more and more weird. I mean, this whole sudden attack on the long census form is like coercion, that the government trying to find out when you're leaving for work in the morning, so they can go and knock off your TV, this kind of threat of government. I mean, this is really Tea Party language. It's like Ron Paul. And I think what's happened here is the government's been caught flat-footed, because suddenly they thought this would appeal to their base, and they've got groups like the Rotman School of Business, Toronto Board of Trade, TD Bank saying, what are you doing here? So now we're being told that there were thousands of complaints, and they can't find any of those complaints. I'd say you just got to go back to the record. Look at 2006. There was Mr. Bernier standing up in the House of Commons, defending the long-form census, defending Canadians' privacy. If he had problems with it then, if he could verify through his staff offices, because they would have, at least, we're not asking for phone numbers and names, we would have the records of these so-called complaints. And I would be very, very, very surprised that they could find more than, as the Privacy Commissioner said, what, 50 complaints in 10 years?
What do you make of it, Marc Arnault? You were talking about it last week, we're talking about it here again, and now Mr. Bernier is saying, you know, I had complaints, but I didn't keep them, but there were a lot of people complaining. Do you buy it?
I think they're making it up as they go along, because they're getting a little bit desperate, and I would say a little dishonest. Monsieur Bernier talking about 1,000 independent emails per day during the 5 weeks of the census. I'd like to see that evidence. It was probably some form of email campaign. And I would say Mr. Clement is being also a little bit dishonest, because he let everybody believe that when he decided to go the voluntary route, that he spoke with Stats Can, and they said to him, well, if you increase the sample size, everything will be fine. We know that Stats Can never said anything like that. The Conservatives are digging themselves into a deeper, deeper hole over something where they're behaving extremely stupidly, and it's all based on ideology. Mr. Poilievre is skating at the moment.
Well, I better let you respond. Are you behaving stupidly, as Marc Arnault says?
Well, I don't think anybody appreciates that kind of harsh language, especially when the House of Commons is not even in session. But, you know, the reality is that you have the opposition party suggesting that voluntary surveys can't produce accurate information. Well, the mandatory survey that was conducted in 2001, the long form, suggested that 21,000 Canadians subscribed to the religion of the Jedi Knights. That's enough people to fill Calgary's Saddle Dome or Toronto's Air Canada Centre. If my friend Mr. Garneau believes that that is accurate information. Well, then maybe he can round up the 20,000 people who believe in Jedi Knight religion.
This is
not
more
only that, but if I could just
misleading
point
by
make one other
Mr.
point
Poilievre.
to
This is
conclude
more
this.
misleading
If I could
because
just
hang on
conclude,
one second, Mr. Garneau. I'll get you right in. Don't worry.
on this issue of voluntary information. The CBC hires a pollster. So do other television networks. So do companies and banks. All of these organizations conduct surveys that are highly accurate and do so with 100% of the respondents responding voluntarily. So voluntary surveys do work. They have been done. They're done all around the world. There's no reason why we can't do so.
Not quite for the same purpose, though. It's not.
No,
it's not for demographic
sure
information.
It is. Absolutely, it is. There's demographic information that is done through
that's not the
voluntary
same sort of
surveys
questioning.
all the time. And
Okay,
it
Mark
works.
Garneau, you wanted in there.
Yeah, this is another example of the Conservatives misleading. What Pierre Poilievre is trying to do here is to cast doubt on the quality of the census data, not survey data, gathered by Statistics Canada. Statistics Canada has a world-renowned reputation. And by bringing up this silly example of the Jedi Knights, it's trying to make it sound as if all of this data is questionable. We know that's not true because so many reputable organizations in the country use it. What the Conservatives should be doing is reassuring Canadians who are fair-minded that this is important for Canadians to fill out this data and that their privacy is protected. There's never been a violation. If they took that kind of constructive approach, we wouldn't have a problem here.
Charlie Angus?
Well, I think what's really disturbing here, when you break through all these excuses, and I think this is why we're looking at this, is it's a question of credibility. I mean, this government is really the gang that couldn't shoot straight. They picked up a theme that's popular, with the Sarah Palin crowd. It didn't work here. We've got major economists, major banks, major academics saying this data is what we count on. So now they're turning away from the political to actually attacking the data. And I think it's making them look more and more ridiculous. My suggestion to them would be, hey guys, a huge mistake here. Let's just back off and get back on track. But instead, they seem to be digging themselves further and further into a hole.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the people that are against it, because there was a letter sent to the Industry Minister, Tony Clement, who's out of the country right now, signed by 23 organizations who are concerned with the decision to scrap the mandatory long-form census. And I just want to show you some of the letter they sent to the Industry Minister. They wrote, "We are greatly concerned about this decision. Loss of the long-form census information will cause considerable economic and social costs. The data are a key part of the decision-making processes of businesses, marketers, public service providers, community service providers, and charities." That was something that they just sent today, hoping to get a response to the Industry Minister. And Pierre, I'll also put this to you. Also, a letter from James Rajat, a Conservative MP for Edmonton-Leduc, also sent a letter to Tony Clement today, saying that he's had some concerns about getting rid of this survey as well. So obviously not everyone in caucus is on the same page as you and the Industry Minister appear to be. There does seem to be a lot of people questioning the decision. Why do you want to, is that why you want to hold a committee? You want to get it out there and explain it better? Have you not done a great job explaining it so far, do you think?
I think that the first thing that we need to clarify is that we're not getting rid of any survey. We're replacing a mandatory survey with a voluntary one.
Yeah,
and we're including a much larger sample size in order to ensure that
that's not at all my question, though, Karen. My question is, the question is, do you think you need to better explain to Canadians, because now you're recalling an industry committee, and you've got a lot of people writing in, including one of your own MPs, saying, can we talk about this some more? It maybe isn't the best decision.
We're happy to have a discussion about it in the committee, because we believe that our position is defensible. We believe that Canadians should not be forced against their will through threat of jail time to respond to personal and unnecessary information. And we're prepared to defend that position in Canada's parliamentary committee responsible for the question.
What difference do you think the